Hello everybody and welcome to the Royal Chess YouTube channel. My name is David Kaňovský and this is second part of my serial about stalemates. In the first part I was talking about stalemates in general, and I was showing you some important positions which are important for the idea of stalemate throughout pawn endgames, and also the endgames between a queen and a pawn on a second or seventh rank. And I showed you that the stalemate is very important in positions with a bishop pawn against a queen and also with a rook pawn against a queen. Today, in the second part of this topic, I would like to show you another important positions and in my opinion very nice positions from different kind of endgames where the stalemate is the most important thing, the thing thanks to which we can survive and save the game. And after this part, in the next three parts, I will finally show you some really nice practical examples from real chess games. Okay, so let's start. And I would like to start today's lecture with a really beautiful endgame, which you can show on the chessboard at the moment. And as you can see, here we have, let's say, knight ending. So only black has a knight here, and together black is a knight and a pawn up. So his material advantage is really big, and it should be enough for a win in almost every possible position and every possible endgame. But if white is on the move here, he can save the game. He didn't lose the game, and it is really amazing in my opinion, and beautiful. Okay, of course white need to start with a king c6 here, and this is very important of course, because if you would go for, let's say, king d6 instead, I would play knight a4, and now the road to close the black knight is for two moves, and it is too far for white king. So king c6 is important, and now of course if black is playing c4, I'm going king c5 and taking black pawn on c4, and I will wait of course where the black knight is going. So if black is playing knight a4, I'm going king b5 of course, and after knight e4, king d5, with attacking a black knight immediately. But of course after knight e4, king d5, black can save his knight and take the last white pawn on h2, and it seems that black should be still able to win, because after knight g5, king is taken on c5 of course, and knight f3, king d5, knight takes h2, and king e4. But as I have said already, this is a theoretical draw position, because now the problem for black is that its knight is blockading his pawn, and the knight has no possible move. After that, it would still cover the important f3 square. So white king approaches the square of black h pawn. And after knight g4, king f3, h2, king g2. This is a very important drawing position. So black has knight with his h pawn. He cannot win because, and that's the problem, his pawn is already on h2. If it would be, let's say, on h7, h6, h5, and so on, black is easily winning this endgame, this position. But with his pawn on h2 already, there is no way how to win, because white king easily going throughout g2 and h1 square, and black knight is of course important on g4 because it is covering his pawn. But after any move like king g3, king h3, king f2, and so on, white king is stalemated. So, as I have said, this position is a draw, and there is no way how could black win this endgame. Okay, let's move on. So far, we have studied the situations where we can save the game thanks to stalemate. But of course, we can use the idea of stalemate also in another way, and we can win the game thanks to a stalemate idea. Of course, if we have king and the knight against king only, it is a draw, of course. But if we have knight and king against king and a pawn, we could win, especially when the king with a pawn is on the edge of the board, or the best way in the corner of the board. So this position is winning for white, even though he's got only knight. But white has to play carefully here, and the right move is king f3. It is very important to make exactly this move, exactly this tempo. King f2 is a mistake, after which there is no way to win. It is very important to say that knight has one really negative thing in endgames, and it is the fact he cannot make any tempos. King can make tempos with a triangle, bishop of course 2, rook, queen, and so on, but knight has no chance to do that. That's the reason I need to play king f3 here. After king h1, king f2, king h2. The idea of winning this position, this endgame, is that I play knight c3, and after king h1, knight e4. And it is of course very important to be situated near to g3 square, because for example, if we would play knight d1, it is a mistake, because after h2 there is a problem. We don't have checkmate on g3. We need to play something like king f1 and so on, and there is a stalemate here. But after knight e4, if black is playing h2, there is a mate of course on g3. But after king h2, we are aiming for f1 square, and after king h1, knight f1. This is the idea of white here. Black has to play h2, there is no other option, and of course white is checkmating black king here. So this is another very important idea, how to use a stalemate for a win in positions like that. And one more position, one more endgame with a knight is this one, and it is a draw too. There is no way how could black take pawn on h2, or better to say, of course, black could take the pawn, but white is covering the pawn, and white king again simply go in on g1, h1, and black cannot make any progress here, because of course again there is still stalemate after let's say king f2, knight e2 and so on. No possibility to win this position. Okay, let's move to endgames with a bishop. Of course, with a bishop we have one really important theoretical position, theoretical draw, and it is a position or an endgame with a rook pawn, so a pawn or h pawn, and a bishop. And of course, there is an important rule. If we have a rook pawn and our bishop is not covering, promoting a square for the pawn, the position is draw. But of course, one more important thing, the position is draw if the king of weaker side can make it to the corner. Of course, if it cannot make it to the corner, we can win, but this position is a draw. Also, there's no way how to let black king from the corner. Again, there is of course an idea of stalemate, and white cannot win. But it is very important to say that also with a good bishop, good bishop together with a rook pawn, sometimes we cannot win. This is another important theoretical position, which is a draw. Even we have a good bishop, because the bishop is covering, promoting square of our rook pawn, because there is also a black pawn on a7, and again we have no chance to get black king from the corner, from a8 and b8 squares, again because of stalemates. Because if we place simply king d7, black has no move. There's a stalemate here. I think this is really clear. So let's move on. The position we have just saw is in effect very same if we make some more pawns in the position, and for example this position is also a draw, even though white is a piece up, white is a bishop up, and there are many pawns on the board. White cannot do really anything here. Still a draw, still a drawing position thanks to a stalemate. But I think that probably the most interesting position from let's say bishop endings is here. Here we even don't have rook pawns but bishop pawns, but again black cannot make any progress and black cannot win this endgame, this position, because still white is just keeping a1 and b1 squares, and black can do really nothing, because after, let's say, bishop g6, white is just going on a1, and bishop has to step away from the diagonal b1 h7, because there is another stalemate here. And one more bishop position, position from endings with a bishop, is here. This is another really important position, another draw. White is a bishop and a pawn up against only the king, but white cannot win, because here his bishop is really very bad placed on h7. Anytime he plays bishop g8, black king just takes it. Of course, it's clear and easy, and again, no way how white could win here. For example, if we try bishop g8 and just take, and after king f6, king f8, we of course already know this position from pawn endings. After g7, king g8, king g6, there's a stalemate here. Okay, one more position with a bishop here against three white pawns. And in this situation, it seems that white could be able to win, because his pawns are really strong in here. But the truth is, it is also a draw, because after king h8, white again cannot make any progress because of the idea of stalemate. For example, after king f7, black is just making any move with his bishop, and after f6, of course, black is taking on f6, and after king takes on f6, there's a stalemate here. So you can see that really many positions are drawing, especially because of idea of stalemate, and of course also in endgames with the rook. This is another important theoretical position. White is a rook up against the last black pawn. It seems white should be winning here, but if black is on the move, after king b2, this position is another nice example of a draw. Because after check on b8, there is important to move king c1. After rook a8, king b2. And after king d2, simply a2. And after rook b8, king a1. There's a problem, of course, that now the black king is stalemated. So white rook has to abandon b file. But after that, black is playing king b2 again, of course, and white has no chance to win. Another important position, which is drawn thanks to a stalemate, is an endgame with a rook against a bishop. It is of course a theoretical draw, but we need to know one important rule in here, and that if we have a bishop against a rook, we need to go to the different corner from our bishop. So if we have a dark colored bishop, we need to go to the white corner, and of course if we have light colored bishop, we need to go to the black corner. The reason for it is that here after check on g8, we of course play bishop b8, and again white king is stalemated at the moment, so black has to play, let's say, rook g7, and we are playing for example bishop h2 again, and again no possibility to win. So this is also important. And at the end, one more important position, another theoretical draw, is an endgame against an endgame with a rook and a bishop against a rook. This is of course a very interesting endgame, and even though theoretically it's a draw, many games ended with a win for a stronger side, because it is really not so easy to defend this endgame, and we of course need to know two things. One thing is that the right idea of defense is covering second or seventh square rank here, and second thing, very important, is that for example in this position it seems that black is lost, because white is threatening checkmate on a8, and how should I defend it? It seems I have no option, because after, let's say, rook c7, c8 square is covered by bishop, so there is still there's still checkmate after rook a8 and taking on c8. But of course there is a difference here, and it is a very important rook d7 move. And another stalemate idea, because now if white king is going, let's say, on c5 or e5, I can play, for example, rook c7, and there is no more checkmate on a8. And of course, after bishop taking d7, it is a stalemate. Black king is stalemated, and the position and the game is a draw immediately, of course. So I believe that examples I have shown you today would be important for you, and also interesting for you, and I would like to say you let's remember these kind of positions, these kind of endgames, and it is really important not only for these endgames, but in our games we can have very similar positions, very similar situations, and also even with more pieces on the board, we could think, or we should think, about situations like these, like I have shown you today. So we can try to get situations like this, where we can save the game even with a big material disadvantage. And it is of course because of the idea of stalemate. So this is everything from second part of topic stalemates, and from the third part, and I believe you are looking forward to it, we will discuss some really nice practical examples from real games. So thank you for watching. Thank you for liking Royal Chess YouTube channel, and see you next time.